So today, Zoom tennis, we're talking about HR advice for COVID, some practical advice from an HR professional as to how we can cope with COVID, how we can make it better for our employees, and as a result, kick forward into 2021. So Natalie McMillan from McMillan and Associates, it's great to see you today. How are you?
Hi, I'm great, thanks, Chris. And it's really nice to see Centre Court behind you because it takes me back to being 14 years old when I actually met Boris Becker. And believe it or not, he touched my right arm.
Oh, I say. Oh, and how did you manage to get to a point where you were close enough to Boris Becker for him to touch you, Nat?
Well, in those days, the tennis players just walked around. So you could go to the training court and they used to come out and walk to Centre Court. So it really was that easy. He was taking his racket out of his car and I was stalking him.
And did he kind of touch you surreptitiously, or did you sort of brush so close to him he had no option but to touch you?
No, as I recall, he was trying to move me out of the way of my other teenage friends.
Ever belligerent Natalie, I'm going to succeed from this encounter, whatever happens. All right. Good. Well, we are here to talk about HR advice, and I'm sure people will want to get into the guts of this match as quick as possible. So concept is, I'll ask you a question, and then you chuck it back at me with your advice, and then retrospectively ask me a question, and I'll try to support it with something that's equally as good as what you've told us about. But it is about you, Nat, today. Okay, so first question, balls at the ready, umpires poised. What do you think HR can do right now to support businesses during lockdown?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And for me, there's some real practical ways that HR can have an influence and make a difference to a business bottom line and its people. I'm going to really just cover three things in this quick chat. So one for me is about performance and managing your employees' performance in the right way. I think that lockdown for me has heightened this. I've talked about this pre-lockdown, but managing performance is not about presenteeism, and it is not about the number of hours that people work. It's about what people produce. It's about their productivity, their output. So being really clear with them about their objectives and holding them to account on them. That allows them then, when they're working perhaps remotely and in other ways, to be able to work flexibly because they're clear what your expectation is of them in their role, and you give them the freedom in how they deliver that. So that's one important message for me. The other one I want to talk about is well-being. At the beginning of lockdown, I was quite concerned that it would be what I call a one-hit wonder. So in April and May, there was a flurry of well-being and everybody talking about it. And that seemed to tail off. And it's really important for me that HR within businesses or individuals like me continue to wave the flag and the importance of well-being, not just mental health, but well-being in its broadest sense. It needs to be something that you consistently do. It should be part of your culture. So whether that's walking meetings, whether it's having time to talk at the beginning of meetings about how people are feeling, whether it's offering support, counselling, meditation, all those different ranges, it has to be something that you do all of the time and that you role model. And then the third one for me is around trust. And that's really about team building. For me, it's never been more important. When people, again, are not going into the office, there can be a sense of paranoia, a sense of disconnection, and that can lead to conflict in teams. And I'm seeing more and more call from businesses I work with to help them to get their teams connected again and back to being high-performing teams and dealing with conflict. So those are the three really takeaways for me that I'd encourage HR and businesses to think about around their people. It's also really important, isn't it, Chris, that people feel valued and appreciated. And so it'd be interesting to know your thoughts or ideas about any simple systems you've got that you can share that would help people to keep their team feeling valued and appreciated.
Okay, well, I love those three tips: performance, well-being, and trust. And I really like the last one, the trust, and it reflects back on leadership. You can have the badge on the door, but actually it's how you live the values that really is the thing that matters. And I've got a lovely little system, well, I think it's lovely, and I think the employees also enjoy it, which I call is their secrets and treats form. So when they start inducting with us, we literally them to fill in their secrets and treats and ask them questions around their favorite shop, their favorite music, their favorite restaurant, their favorite food, their favorite drink, perfume. And when we see something that happens, or when the birthday comes up or the anniversary in the business, we literally just pull out the secrets and treats form and find something that's particularly pertinent to the individual. And then you can send it to that person and they know that it's absolutely personal to them. And I have a stack of cards on my desk. So this is my sort of thank you for being awesome card. And I've got another one, thanks one here. And I think it's so simple to write to somebody personally. But when you receive that, it means so much to the recipient. And I've often gone to, when we could, perhaps gone to their houses, when we've had a party, and you see these cards that are dotted around on shelves as sort of a badge of recognition that it clearly meant something to them when they received it. And that's an enduring legacy that will last with them forever. So it's just, perhaps it's a system, but it's a system that really means something to the individual, of taking time out to think about them, taking time out to notice, and just taking time out to really, really care. And I think leaders, we were so good at walking the floor and feeling the pulse of business because we were ever present. And now we can't do that. And some leaders, I think, are locking behind their cameras or locking behind communication. But you can still go and have a virtual coffee. You can still go out and talk to somebody. You can still meet them somewhere for a walking, talking meeting to find out how they're really doing. But I think sometimes the leaders haven't retrospectively thought, how do I have to lead differently to continue to be a leader in a time when we are physically locked out of having that physical pulse on the business?
I agree. I really like that, secrets and treats. That might be something that I pinch with pride, Chris.
Absolutely, still shamelessly.
Well, yeah, but I think sometimes we underestimate the small acts, actually the impact that has on individuals. And that's what I particularly like about that.
Yeah, and what happens is when it's somebody's birthday, oh, what should we get Nat for a birthday? Oh, she's been here a year. What should we get Nat? What does she like? And then, of course, somebody says, Nat, what shop do you like to shop at? And you know that this is causing something which is going to either recipient or a gift, or they've just not remembered. There's none of that. You just dive into the form. And of course, we will also refresh it each year because people's habits change based on each year. So part of our annual health check, annual check-in, please fill in your self-declared medical history, and also can you update your secrets and treats at the same time. So it's always up to date.
Yeah, great. Really like
it. Second question back to you then. And this is really important because I think you're going to tell us some practical steps, I think, that are helping right now. So from your experience of the last, 8 months now, what's working well in practice for businesses in terms of how they're helping their employees cope with lockdown?
Yeah, so I'll pick up first of all around the well-being that we talked about. So where I've seen some great examples, and I work, as you're aware, Chris, across all sectors. So I work from the NHS through to the not-for-profit and private and SMEs. I think a really good example from the NHS that I want to share that people might have heard about is Wobble Rooms. Or people might not have heard about them. I can see from your face you might not have. A Wobble Room was kind of a safe space for when people were feeling that anxiety, that pressure, maybe just, overwhelmed, as you can imagine staff were. It was a place they could just go into and sit and actually show that vulnerability and go, I'm not okay. And they've been great. They've been rolled out across the NHS, and I think that's something that can be adapted in other places. The other one that I really like is around, you've been talking about valuing and appreciating. I think it's about remembering we are people that come to work. And this is something I've certainly done in my business, and I've seen other businesses do it. And it's kind of what we call a checkout on a Friday. And it's what I call the 3 T's. So it's easy to remember. And it is, we talk about tragedy, we talk about trivia, and we talk about triumph. And I used to do it at the end of a Friday when I was chief exec with my team. And we used to sit on a Friday about 3:30 and we'd do those 3 T's for our week. And the real importance and impact is it enables people to feel like they've brought that week to a close, and perhaps things that have been on their mind, they can go home. And rather than perhaps, and I'm guilty of this, walking in the door on a Friday and going blah, blah to my family, I would arrive home and enjoy my Friday. So that's a really simple technique that works really well. The other way that I've seen it work really well is those organisations that have continued to invest in their people. So I know at the beginning, probably April, May, seems a long time ago now, people immediately stopped doing kind of the add-on and just thought they'd focus on the here and now. Actually, those businesses that have employees that feel valued, that are going to stay with them, really, really important, are those that have invested. So things that I've maybe done is work around Lencioni's work around trusting teams, how to keep building relationships, but actually still putting all of that investment into your people. This is going to end at some point. I don't think until maybe autumn next year. But what businesses can't afford is for an exodus of employees at that time. So keep investing, keep training, and keep thinking about your people.
And what happens in the tragedy part of those 3 T's? What kind of things happen from that?
Yeah, I mean, tragedy does sound a bit serious, doesn't it, Chris? It's kind of, sometimes you can do that Bee Gees tragedy if you want to make it feel a little bit more light-hearted. But it's maybe something like maybe something you wanted to deliver and it didn't go to plan. Perhaps you made a mistake. Maybe you felt like you'd had a bit of tension with someone in the team. It's more that it's meant to be quite a fun way of just trying to, I suppose, park something that you feel you haven't been able to do, rather than take it away with you and overthink it all weekend.
Okay. And just to come back on the point about well-being, have you got any indicators that you would need to look for to show that organizationally they're feeling stressed, or that the overall mood of the business culturally is one of anxiety or overworked and underappreciated? Is there anything there that you're looking for as KPIs or indicators?
Yeah, well, the classic one is the sickness absence. But for me, it's about getting underneath that. So, data is always an indicator. For me, it's about regularly talking to your staff. So when you're having meetings, don't have them that they're just about business, that they're just about what we're delivering. Have those one-to-one catch-ups. Genuinely ask, how are you feeling? What's going on for you? Are you feeling overwhelmed? What can I do to support you? So you can have the overall data, but for me, it's that important bit. And I talk about individuals, Chris. It's about understanding how each individual is feeling and what works for them. And if you have that connection, do that. So formal meetings, but don't forget to have those informal. You talked about it, the quick kind of virtual coffees. Don't always meet with your employees just about work. Have a 10-minute catch up on a Tuesday. Just wanted to know how you're doing, what's going on with you, how are the kids, how's the dog, how's the cat?
Asking those emotional questions that actually show that you mean what you say, as opposed to just glossing over it. Okay, lovely, good. Anything else? Final question, I think, back for you, to me now.
Yes, indeed. So obviously we know people are working remotely. We've talked before about that's likely to happen probably until summer, maybe even beyond that next year. So what do you think people can do, make it easier for their people who are working remotely?
Oh, well, I'm going to first of all come back to one of your tips about your 3 T's. I've got a little technique that we do, which is called our WIFLE. And the WIFLE in our meeting stands for what I feel like expressing. And there is no agenda to it, but each person has an opportunity to sort of go around the cameras, or when it was a physical meeting, we just kind of go around the room. And the WIFLE is whatever you want to talk about. And it can be a work or a personal or even a left field aspect. So what I feel like expressing is that Donald Trump is, or Biden is, just whatever's top of mind that you want to talk about. So that's something that I quite enjoy. From a physically working perspective, I think it's about understanding that 9 to 5 doesn't always exist for people right now. And as long as the work gets done, that is the priority for people. And if that means that people are working from 3 to 11 because that's when the other partner is available to look after the children, that's cool. And also, a lot of people talk about, I get reluctant when people have their cameras off. Seek first to understand before you want to be understood, and ask the question. Nat, I noticed last week that you had your camera off. Is everything okay? Well, actually, yeah, behind me, it's just complete devastation. We're ripping the wallpaper down. I'm a bit ashamed of my workspace. I don't want people to see into my world. And then maybe then the leader can help other people appreciate that Nat's going through something, and let's just let her have camera off for now. So it's asking the question that's non-assumptive to understand how people are working, and then just putting some rhythm and some routines into the week to make sure that people have got permission, perhaps at 2 o'clock every Thursday, to be out of the agenda. Diaries are clear, and this is 2 o'clock meditation, 2 o'clock exercise, 2 o'clock Netflix, catch up on the Crown episodes that you haven't managed to do yet. But everybody's got permission at 2 o'clock on a certain day of the week to do whatever suits them, and it's not within the business rhythm. And then encouraging perhaps meetings to have walk and talking meetings like you talked about, as opposed to physically having camera meetings. So it's just trying to engineer some space in as a leadership team and as an employee-centric team to ask the team, what can we do differently? What's not working right now? How can we change the structure of our week to reflect back what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and then deliver on it? Like you have that wobble room. Well, it's fine to have a wobble room, but if nothing happens from the wobble, it was no point having the wobble room. So it's actually making sure that the outputs create inertia, create momentum from the things that have happened. That's kind of where I'm at. And I get really frustrated about this lack of well-being and lack of employee-centricness. And you're damn right. When we come out of this, there'll be so many employees that remember how they were treated and check out and go and find the employee businesses that were those that were employee-centric and not company-centric.
They will. And whilst it might feel like a tight labour market at the moment, that's not going to last forever. And I think employers, at their own peril, believe that they're in a position of being infallible, if you like, and having all of the power. I really like your point about the camera, Chris. I think we have to understand that there can be a number of reasons, as you've rightly said. We're suddenly asking employees to let everybody into their home. They're not used to that, and not everybody wants everyone to come into their home. As you say, some people feel it's an intrusion, and there can be a whole host of reasons. Not that people, for example, I've heard, well, they're just putting the camera off so we can't see them and they're off doing something else. And that goes back to the point about trust and relationships, doesn't it? Trust your employees to do the right thing.
Yes, because if you're running a successful meeting, you can still create engagement points by way of chat or other virtual platforms to encourage people to give their collaborative views, or you can call Nat out to say, Nat, what do you think about that? So you can still engage people with a meeting to make sure that they're not distracted or they're not off camera, because the meeting organizer is making sure they're checking in. The same way as you would into a conference room, if you were training people and you saw them checking out their phone, you saw them staring out the window, you would say, hey, Nat, how you doing? Just want to make sure you got the last point. And you would physically see that people were checked out of the physical space, and you would bring them back in again. And you have to design this context to ensure that people have an opportunity to engage, but also the trainer makes them feel as though they need to keep engaged, because they're making them feel as though they could be asked a question or asked to contribute or asked to give an opinion about something that's just been put on the slide deck.
Of course, and you can use other ways, can't you? You know, a simple phone call, that's quite nice. I've quite enjoyed the good old-fashioned back on my mobile phone and not seeing people and having a 10-minute chat. But text, you know, a text can take a minute or two, a WhatsApp message, just a hi, how are you? Or using things like Slack. There are other ways that you can message people. It doesn't always have to be on Zoom, which we know is quite exhausting for people.
Sure. Okay, last question back to you. The tip perhaps that you've thought about, or the one thing that you've learned, your enduring legacy for lockdown for you, Nat, that you've thought, that's the thing I'm never going to get about lockdown 2019, 2020.
Is the fact that we can innovate and adapt.
Love it. Okay. Nat, it's a great pleasure to have you here today. Thank you again for your time. I know you're going to check out in a minute to go and make another call. So I'm just going to make sure that we can share each other's contact details. If anybody wants to deal with Nat from here on in, can you see that now? Am I sharing my red screen? You're not.
I can't see it now.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, you go. It's innovation and adaptability. Let's go back to that. Everybody's now checked out this YouTube channel because they know we're about to finish. But Natalie is a consummate professional when it comes to HR. She's definitely helped me from some HR advice, both from a pro bono basis and also from a charging basis. She's a giver before she's a taker. Those are her contact details there. Nat, is that all right there?
Yeah, that's all perfect. Thank you very much, Chris.
Well, I know we'll see each other again sometime soon, but for now, it's been a lovely game of tennis. I hope I wasn't a disappointment compared to your last time on Centre Port with Boris, but for now, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.